Hello class, Module 7 in Security Plus Fundamentals deals with identifying yourself and access management. Those are the two main topics, and I want to get into authentication credentials first, the first topic. And basically, and you're probably familiar with some of this, and that is, how do you prove who you are? How do you authenticate yourself to a system? One way is location-based, not often used, but you can, for instance, only log into a military base when you're on the military base, when you're in that building, that zone. You can't log into it from home, from off the base. And another way is something you are, a characteristic of yourself. And if you have any of the newer smartphones, now you know they do face detection, and that's identifying who you are, or it could be a fingerprint. Another way would be something you have, right? Could be an ID card, could be a fob, something on your position that you have. And the most common one, surprisingly, is in the bottom of this list, and that's something you know, right? We know a combination of a locker in this example. We also know a password. And we also know when we get a text message, when we have two-factor authentication turned on, we then know the value of that text that we can key in. And that's just a way to keep things more secure when you're logging into a system. So these are just examples of things that we look at to and use and utilize to prove who you are. So the other section here in this chapter has to do with the concept that's a little foreign, perhaps to some of you, and that is, how do you protect that password that's in the database for the system that you're logging into? And hopefully it's not in clear text. It's probably gone through an algorithm to hash it, a one-way hash that is, right? And to make it even more secure, we salt it. We had a random number of characters at the front of it, at the end of it, in the beginning, somewhere in the middle, to alter that password. And probably it's at the beginning or the end of it, and then they hash it after they do that. The problem with that is many times the salt's kept in the same database where the passwords are kept. So if someone were to steal that database, perhaps someone inside the company, they could get to where that value, and then they could run it through a rainbow table that has various passwords that, and you now know the salt value, and you could try different hashes on the password, and then with the hash get into the system, right? Peppering is a little different. It's stored offline, off the database, right? So a little harder to get to, but it's more resource intensive because of that. And then key stretching as well. Let's make it longer. Let's make it harder for the bad person to try to break that hash and get into the system, right? A couple ways of doing that. So let's say the last part has to do with access control. I'm here. And let's go here, and I think there's a table at the bottom here. There are different methods of access control. We talk about, maybe you have, for instance, at the college, we log in with our credential. We get a text message, in my case, or you have a token, you put it in. That's good for 24 hours. And every day I've got to do a new one, right? Unless I log out, and then every time I get into it, I have to put a new one. Discretionary access control is least restrictive. You can give yourself all kinds of permission. And down here we have mandatory access control, which is the most restrictive and not as efficient as you would think. Role-based is popular based on whatever job or function you have within a company. We have certain kind of permissions. Role-based is more dynamic. It's rules based on things that you're trying to do and maybe your access levels. And I think there's a chart. So this is a nice chart. Table 7-6, it talks about and compares the different types of access controls and shows that the least or most restrictive and which one is the most flexible. Attribute-based access control is the most flexible. And then we have at the very end, let's see, access control list is very old. We have a summary. And so in addition to this, I have added a video. It's almost 9 minutes long, but it kind of illustrates and talks about salting and peppering and stretching the key for the passwords, and really illustrates it, because the book doesn't really do a great job showing it to you. So I found a YouTube that does it. I hope that helps. And if you have questions, send me an email.